Okay, is it working now? Come on. Alright, it's working. Good. Okay, so, hey guys, it's Garrett here along with.
This is Jeff, and this is Jeff and Garrett's Football in the South podcast, FITS for short. So we welcome you to our inaugural broadcast. We plan on doing this on a weekly basis in which we will highlight the action of the SEC football schedule this year, what happened, and what our predictions are. So this being the inaugural show, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go over kind of a objective evaluation, explain how we did that, how the teams lined up from some data that we crunched together, and then we're going to put the human element into this and talk a little bit about how we see things outside the scope of the number crunching, and then maybe go over some of the reasons why. So we'll get started. So go ahead, Garrett, if you would go to the next slide.
So first we have the SEC West, which is Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Auburn, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Texas A&M. And the East with Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, South Carolina, and Vandy.
So going into the objective observations of the SEC team, so we'll explain to you here. So one of the first things we looked at is how many starters are coming back from last year. We wanted to understand the strength of schedule. So in the strength of schedule, you can see, basically there we went from who has the easiest path was number 1, who has the toughest path was number 14. Then we looked at recruiting class ranking. Now this recruiting class ranking is based on 4 years average. And then when you look at last year's ranking in terms of where did they line up in the East and the West divisions last year. So when you look at this data and then come back to the starters, you can see that you've got 3 teams, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Kentucky, each having 16 starters, 8 on offense, 8 on defense, followed closely by Ole Miss, who has 15. Vandy also has 15 with all 11 starters coming back on defense. Arkansas comes back with 14. Missouri 13, South Carolina 13. Alabama and Florida come in at 12. So Missouri at 11, and then you get down to Georgia with 10, Auburn 9, and then LSU was decimated, even from their national championship run with only 8 starters coming back.
And then we have the strength and schedule, which was led by Alabama, who had the easiest schedule, so more likely to win their games. And then Vandy had the hardest schedule, which they're not that likely to win their games. And that will be explained later, and what we think they're going to win, and how the rankings actually add up in all of these numbers. So we have Alabama followed closely by Georgia, then LSU, Florida, Texas A&M, Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri, and at the back of the pack, Arkansas and Vandy.
So the recruiting class rankings, again, this is a 4-year average. So over the past 4 years in the SEC, Georgia comes in as the number 1. So that should mean over this 4-year program they have the most talent, at least based on stars coming out of high school. Followed by Alabama, LSU, A&M, Auburn, Florida, Tennessee, middle of the pack. Then you got South Carolina, Kentucky, Mississippi State, gets down to Arkansas, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Vanderbilt.
And then we have last year's rankings, which is Georgia leading the East, followed closely by Florida, then Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, South Carolina, and at the back of the pack, of course, Vandy. And then in the West, LSU, which they won all their games last year. Then we had Alabama, Auburn, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss. Then in the back, Arkansas.
So when you total everything up, it's kind of how it looked like from an objective point of view based on the criteria we used. If the season shook out based just upon this data, You would have Georgia at number 1 in the East and Alabama at number 1 at the West. That is absolutely no surprise to anybody. Number 2 is a bit of a surprise if Tennessee were to finish number 2. I think that would certainly be a surprise. I think most people have them coming in at 3. Florida and Tennessee being flip-flopped. A&M and LSU coming in at 2 and 3, but really would not be a surprise. I think from a national standing point, that'll be right fairly close in line anyway. Kentucky in the East, if you go back there 4, South Carolina 5, Missouri and Vandy 6, you can see the East is shaking out just like that, based upon what it appears from a national media standing point. That probably right in line. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. So really, these lineups here from the objective data would seem to really actually hold fairly consistent with what most of the national media would project. So not such a bad outcome there, but doesn't quite line up exactly with what Garrett and I see coming as the season unfolds. So now we'll go into explaining that. So for my own prediction here, so again, I do have Georgia lined up just as the real ranking, which is the objective data, lines up. Now I do, unfortunately, as a Vol fan, it hurts me, but I do flip-flop Tennessee and Florida. I think Florida has just a little bit too much. I think they can get a game better, as you can see here, than Tennessee this coming year. That's why I have Florida at 2 and Tennessee at 3. Kentucky 4, I line up exactly a 5, 6, and 7, exactly with what the objective data says. So that's the only difference. Now, with that said, I actually do have Tennessee beating Florida this year in Knoxville. The 3 losses I have for the Vols are going to Auburn, losing to Alabama, and losing to Georgia. Those are the 3 games I see for them. But I think that, again, what I would say about Tennessee is that they're going to be sneaky good. Cade Mays being ruled eligible today. Their offensive line is going to be stellar. I think their offensive line will match up with anybody's in the SEC, including Alabama. Fifth-year quarterback Jarrett Garantano coming back. I expect to see him to make strides with Chaney being his 2nd year, so he's got 2 years in a row with an offensive coordinator. That hasn't happened for him, so I expect good things there. I think Eric Gray showed signs last year as a freshman running back that he may be something special. I expect with this offensive line that he's going to have running in front of him, that you'll see that very well may be the case. I think this year what you'll see with Tennessee on the offense is they'll run to set up the pass, and I think that's going to bode well for the Vols in terms of offensive production. What I see from a defensive side, I think their linebackers with Henry To'oTo'o and a lot of other different talent that they're going to have there. I think there's going to be a strength in their 3-4 defense. The defensive line is going to be the suspect of not only the defense but the entire team. I think corners that they're going to be really strong, but I think safety is going to be, and also a question mark that Tennessee has to answer. So Georgia, again, from their standing point, what I see, they've got a talent gap ahead of the SEC, especially other members of the East, but I think it's closing, and I think that it could prove to be tough for them this year. But currently, I've got them still at 9-1. Dan Mullen and the Florida Gators. I mean, Dan Mullen is an excellent coach. He went and competed in the West in a cow pasture in Starkville, Mississippi, in the strongest division in all of football, the SEC West, to be quite frank. So I just really think that he's going to do good things there. Not that I want him to, but I think he will. I think Mark Stoops is a Kentucky coach. I think he's proven to be a really, really good coach. I think he's doing really special things with Kentucky, certainly making them competitive. And I think that they're going to be tough. A tough out for a lot of teams, but this year, with their strength of schedule and so forth, I have them at 5-5. Will Muschamp, I think he's on his way out. I don't think that this will be that year because of the COVID. I think he'll get a pass this year, but I think one more year may do it for him. I think they'll find a really tough year for them. I think Missouri is talent depleted, and obviously Vandy is as well. I think it'll be really tough for these guys. Going over to the West. What I see here again is Alabama 10-0. Yes, I think that the loss of Tua will impact them, but I just think right now, Alabama, they've got some tough games. Obviously with Auburn, it's going to be always a tough game. I think LSU and A&M are certainly not easy games. I think Florida from the East will be a tough game for them as well. but I think Alabama's just a bit too good. I think they come out 10-0 of this year. I think Auburn, Gus Malzahn, I think he's really building something down there, and I think they're a really good football team. I think they'll be a tough out for anybody, but I got them going 8-2. Number 3 at Texas A&M. I think Jimbo Fisher's overrated, and I think the Aggies are as well. So I've got them at 6-4. That's another team actually I have Tennessee beating. That probably a lot of the members of the national media would disagree with, but I think A&M comes to Knoxville and go home with a loss. LSU. Again, this is all about how many players they lost. They got 8 returning starters, meaning they lost 14. I think with this schedule that they have, all SEC, I think 6-4. Loss of Joe Burrows and many other key members will be about the best that I expect them to do. Mike Leach in his first year at Mississippi State. Again, Starkville, cow pasture. It's going to be really tough, but I think he's a really good coach. I think they'll be competitive, but I think they're looking at 4-6. Lane Kiffin coming in his first year. I don't think that I think he'll find a tough road. Again, I expect him to be tough and to play well, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But 3-7 is what I got for him. I think Sam Pittman's first year in Arkansas, with the talent that he doesn't have and the strength of schedule that he does have, I think it's going to be a really, really tough year for him. And I look at him going 0-10. Garrett?
And, well, for my East, it was actually very close to Jeff's, but a couple disagreements in ours with Kentucky. I don't know a lot about them, but I'm going to definitely learn this year. And I think Tennessee, that's going to be what the media is saying they're going to have this year, is just a straight 5-5. South Carolina, I thought from what I saw last year, they were an okay team, so I also put them at 5-5 based on their games that they're playing this year and just their spot as the overall midpoint of the East. And then Missouri, I don't know. By their schedule, they looked like they could win 5 games, but most likely probably not. But they would definitely be above Vandy. And then we have Vandy winning 1. I think that might have been against Kentucky. And losing 9. Their schedule is going to be pretty hard this year. And to me, I don't think they're a big football school. And then Kentucky, of course, I don't know a lot about them, so I put them at 1-9. And then for my West, I have Alabama leading the pack with 0 loss, because I think Bama is just going to overpower all the teams this year, especially with the SEC only schedule and LSU losing those players. And I think Alabama coming in fresh with some new quarterbacks and just stuff to learn, definitely. But Mac Jones has been there for a while, so most likely what Jeff is saying, he'll be there. But I'm hoping Bryce Young, I heard a lot of good things about him. And then Mississippi State, I put them middle of the pack from what I saw from them against Alabama and some other teams last year. And then Texas A&M, same for them. I saw them put some good beatings on people last year. And then Ole Miss, I think they're just right now a lost hope. They're kind of down in the dumps. And same with Arkansas.
So one slight correction from my earlier comments related to Alabama's schedule. I said they played Florida. They do play not Florida. They play Georgia from the East. So I want to thank our intern named Nawana, who was able to help me correct that. She's live here in our studio with us. Her name again is Nawana. And so anyway, sorry for that. So talking about how we go forward with the rest of the year, So what we'll be doing, we'll be coming live to you each Thursday night, 7 o'clock. And what we'll do is we'll predict the next week's games. As we get into the season, we'll talk about our predictions from the previous week. We're going to tally who's more right than wrong, and I suspect I'll be more right and Garrett will be more wrong.
All right.
But we'll keep up with that. Now, we're going to be a little different in terms of what we do. We're not picking winners, we're picking losers. Some of you may be familiar with Leonard's Losers, and then that this is a
You are going to
special
lose.
tribute to him. We're going to talk about who's going to lose and how bad they'll do it. Of course, this year is going to be difficult to predict with the COVID. This is a year like no other, at least since 1918. So certainly not in our lifetime have we seen this. So how it'll affect the football season remains to be seen. We certainly hope it has minimal impact, and we hope all the student athletes are safe, and all those that are supporting them, coaches and staff members and so forth, and all the fans that are able to go to the games. We hope that it's a safe experience, and we hope as the year progresses we see the stadium allowance grow, because that will certainly mean that everything's going the way we all hope it will.
Mm-hmm.
So again, each and every Thursday night we'll come to you. We certainly hope that you guys will support our show, and the more popular it gets, the more things we can add. Eventually up to a call-in, and where we would have special guests call in. We would take your calls and answer your questions and listen to your comments. This is where we'd like to head with this. So we hope this thing is a hit. It really depends on you, and I guess obviously depends on the quality of what we bring to you. And we think we'll get better as we go along. Again, this was our inaugural show. And so that's basically all I've got for this evening, and I'll turn it over to Garrett for final comments.
Yep, we'll definitely be learning more about these teams on how the year is going to be impacted by COVID and be impacted by only the SEC games, or some people had some easier wins in the other conferences. But yeah, if y'all like this content, consider subscribing and liking the video. It helps the channel spread out to more people, and with it spreading, it will definitely grow. And like Jeff said, we could have some callers coming in if it grows enough. So yeah, thank y'all for watching, and we will see y'all next week.
So from myself, from Garrett, and from our intern Noana, have a good